Okay, so we're going to talk some Snoopy in the Peanut Summer Musical. What made you want to come on board the project?
I came on board for some of the earlier ones. I was head of story for the ones that were 2020. Then there was a break, and went on to Sonic Prime, and then they offered me, to go back to direct the musical. There was no hesitation. I was like, absolutely, I'm in. I'm such a fan of Peanuts and Snoopy. As a kid, it's part of my DNA. So I was like, if I can be part of that legacy, absolutely, I'm in.
But speaking of legacy, there's also pressure on that because you have to preserve the legacy. So what was the process of making sure you preserved the legacy, which is sacred to so many, but also, you have to, it's modern. Like we have to do something for today. What was the challenge in that?
Absolutely. For me, I went back to the beginning. All of us did. It was, let's go to Charles Schulz's strips, and we actually didn't go to the Melendez stuff. We wanted to try to really make sure that we were doing our own thing. So like the new specials, they are in the tradition, but they are a modern update, and also making sure, like I said, it's in my DNA, but to really dive in deep to where he was and who Charlie Brown is. These are little adults, and sometimes they have existential crisis. Yep. And the cool thing about Snoopy is that he disarms you with comedy. That was the thing that I got to really see, and then suddenly you're just sideswiped by some really wonderful, deep introspective stuff from Charlie Brown and the rest of the gang. And that just is such a wonderful thing to do that you don't normally get to do in animation. There's a lot of TV shows that have to follow a formula, and Snoopy and Charlie Brown, they allow you to go to places that you normally can't. So yeah, I was in, and that's what sort of keeps you in that Peanuts universe.
So what was the relationship with the Schultz family?
Yeah.
Was there a relationship where we're collaborating?
It's very close. It's Craig Schultz, Brian Schultz, and they're also their longtime collaborator, Neil Uliano. Fantastic guys. It's their idea, and they give you the script. You take it. You, as a director, move around, and things change. But because it's a musical, it was with Ben Folds. You have that that collaboration and those conversations with them. That also informs the story, and it changes stuff. And then you go back to the Schultzes again, and they are sort of like the gatekeepers of everything. And like, is that Snoopy? Is that Charles Schultz?
So, and then at what point did you sit down and realize, looking at the footage, I'm directing Snoopy?
Yeah, it was a freak out. It was a real freak out. You're like, I cannot believe that this moment is happening. And it was when they came to me and said, hey, we want you to do it. And then you get the script. And when you start storyboarding it is where you're like,
Snoopy,
now it's happening. Friends who are screenwriters, when they're on set, you hear those stories of like, it's actually happening.
Yeah.
And that for me, being on set is the storyboard.